wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished calibrating the atmospheric processors on Mining Station 442B. The remote outpost sat on the edge of known space, where humans pushed the boundaries of exploration and resource extraction. Most people avoided assignments here, calling it the graveyard shift of the galaxy, preferred the solitude. After losing his family in the colony disaster 3 years ago, isolation felt safer than connection. The station's automated systems hummed quietly around him as he made his final rounds. Tomorrow marked the end of his 18-month contract, and he still hadn't decided whether to renew or head back to Earth. The steady work kept his mind occupied, but lately, the silence felt heavier than usual. His supervisor had mentioned personnel shortages at other remote stations, places even more isolated than 442B. Perhaps pushing further into the void would help him forget. A sharp alarm pierced the station's quiet atmosphere, jolting from his thoughts. The proximity sensors detected an incoming vessel, but the signature didn't match any human ship design. His hands moved across the control panel with practiced efficiency, bringing up the external cameras. What he saw made his breath catch in his throat. A sleek crystalline ship tumbled through space, its hull crackling with electrical discharges. The vessel's design human engineering principles, appearing grown rather than built. Organic curves flowed into geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Most disturbing of all, the ship was clearly dying. Massive tears in its hull vented atmosphere into the void, and its erratic trajectory suggested failing propulsion systems. Had never encountered alien technology before, but he recognized a desperate situation when he saw one. The ship would impact the station's outer ring in less than 20 minutes if its current course held. He could activate the defensive systems, vaporizing the unknown vessel before it posed a threat. Standard protocol demanded exactly that response. But something about the ship's damaged state triggered his protective instincts rather than his fears. Instead of reaching for the weapon's controls, fired up the station's massive cargo manipulators. The mechanical arms, designed for moving asteroid chunks, extended toward the dying ship. Getting a solid grip on the alien hull proved challenging. The surface seemed to shift and flow under the manipulator claws, but eventually they found purchase. With careful precision, guided the vessel toward the station's emergency docking bay. The docking process took longer than expected. The alien ship's hull interfaced poorly with human docking systems, requiring improvised connections and jury-rigged atmosphere seals. Worked feverishly, knowing that whoever was inside the ship was running out of time. The vessel's life support systems, assuming they worked similarly to human ones, showed critical failure across multiple indicators. When the docking bay finally pressurized, grabbed his emergency suit and headed for the airlock. He paused at the threshold, considering the magnitude of what he was about to do. First contact with an alien species was supposed to involve trained diplomats and not a lonely mining engineer with a death wish. But the thought of leaving potential survivors to die felt worse than the risk of the unknown. The alien ship's airlock opened with a sound like breaking glass. The atmosphere that rushed out carried strange scents, ozone mixed with something floral and metallic. Activated his suit's translation protocols, though he doubted they would help with a completely unknown language. He stepped into the ship, his helmet lights cutting through the dim interior. The ship's corridors human spatial logic. Walls curved in impossible directions, and surfaces that looked solid from one angle appeared transparent from another. Followed the strongest life sign readings on his scanner, navigating through passages that seemed to rearrange themselves as he moved. The technology was clearly beyond human understanding, but the signs of battle damage were universal. He found them in what appeared to be the ship's medical bay. A tall, elegant being lay unconscious on a crystalline platform, surrounded by 3 smaller forms. The adult's skin had a subtle blue-green tint that shifted like water in sunlight. Delicate features and pointed ears gave her an almost ethereal appearance, but the dark stains on her clothing and the shallow rise and fall of her chest spoke of severe injuries. The 3 smaller beings, clearly children, huddled around their unconscious guardian. They looked up with large, luminous eyes that held a mixture of fear and desperate hope. Their skin shared the same shifting hue as the adult, but with a more pronounced iridescence. They couldn't have been more than equivalent to human 6-year-olds, based on their size and the way they clung to each other. Slowly removed his helmet, demonstrating that he could breathe their atmosphere. The gesture seemed to calm the children slightly. He activated his suit's universal translator, hoping the advanced system could establish basic communication. After several minutes of processing, words began forming on his display. "Please," one of the children whispered, the translator rendering the alien sounds into accented English. "Mother is hurt. Help mother." The simple plea cut through like a laser. These beings were refugees, survivors of some disaster that had left them adrift in space. The mother's injuries looked severe, possibly beyond the capabilities of his basic medical supplies. But he had to try. The alternative meant watching a family die, and he'd seen enough death for one lifetime. Carefully lifted the unconscious mother, surprised by how light she felt despite her tall frame. Her skin was warm to the touch and had an unusual texture, somewhere between human flesh and smooth stone. The children followed closely as he carried her through the ship's confusing corridors, occasionally reaching out to touch their mother's hand or speak in their musical language. Getting everyone to the station's medical bay required multiple trips. The alien ship's gravity differed from standard human normal, making movement awkward. Had to practically carry each child across the docking bridge, their trust in him both touching and terrifying. By the time he had the family settled in the medical bay, his hands were shaking from adrenaline and responsibility. The station's medical systems were designed for human physiology, but hoped the basic principles would translate. He started with the obvious problems, cleaning and sealing the worst wounds with surgical. The mother's blood had an unusual consistency and color, but it responded to human coagulants. Her vital signs, while alien, showed patterns that suggested stable unconsciousness rather than critical failure. The children watched every movement with intense focus, realized they were studying him as much as monitoring their mother's condition. Their large eyes seemed to catalog every detail of human anatomy and behavior. When he offered them water and basic nutrient paste, they accepted gratefully, though their eating habits proved fascinatingly different from human norms. As hours passed, found himself drawn into basic communication with the triplets. Their names were complex musical phrases that his translator rendered as Lyra, Zephyr, and Nova. They were indeed siblings, though apparently not in the traditional human sense. Their species, they explained through broken translation, grew in connected clusters before developing individual consciousness. Lyra, the apparent eldest, possessed an intuitive understanding of technology that amazed. She could interface directly with electronic systems through touch, her fingers glowing with soft bioluminescence as she worked. Zephyr showed remarkable empathy, somehow sensing some emotional state and responding with comforting gestures. Nova displayed incredible pattern recognition, quickly learning to predict his movements and anticipate his needs. The mother remained unconscious through the night, her condition stable but concerning. Set up sleeping arrangements for the children using spare cushions and blankets from his quarters. They insisted on staying close to their mother, creating a small nest around her medical bed. Before settling down, Lyra approached with something like gratitude glowing in her eyes. "You are good human," she said, the words carefully formed. "Mother spoke of good humans, said they exist but rare, you prove her correct." Felt something crack inside his chest at the simple statement. For 3 years, he'd isolated himself from meaningful connections, convinced that caring only led to loss. But these children, aliens from beyond human space, saw something in him worth trusting. Their faith felt simultaneously undeserved and precious. As the station's automated systems dimmed the lights for the sleep cycle, took the first watch. The alien ship in the docking bay had gone completely dark, its systems finally failing beyond recovery. Whatever catastrophe had driven this family into space, they couldn't return to it. They were stranded on his station, dependent on his choices for their survival. The weight of responsibility should have terrified him. Instead, found himself planning modifications to the life support systems, calculating food requirements for different physiologies, and thinking about how to establish proper communication protocols. For the first time in 3 years, he was thinking about the future rather than just enduring the present. The mother stirred near dawn, her eyes fluttering open to reveal irises that shifted color like aurora. She tried to sit up too quickly and winced, her hand moving to the bandaged wounds on her side. Approached slowly, not wanting to startle her. When she saw him, her expression cycled through confusion, wariness, and finally recognition as she noticed her children sleeping peacefully nearby. "You helped us," she said, her voice carrying musical overtones that the translator couldn't quite capture. "My children trust you. This is unexpected." Nodded, unsure how to respond. The mother studied him with obvious intelligence, her gaze taking in details that made him feel transparent. After a long moment, she attempted to rise again, accepting his offered assistance with careful dignity. "I am," she said, the translated name somehow failing to capture the beauty of her actual words. "These are my bonded young. We're traveling to Sanctuary when our ship failed." "What happened to your ship?" asked, helping her settle into a more comfortable position. His expression darkened, her skin shifting to deeper blue tones. "Hunters," she said simply. "They seek to capture our kind for experimentation. Our fell to them months ago. We escaped, but they pursued us across star systems." The implications hit like a physical blow. This wasn't just a family fleeing disaster. They were refugees from genocide. The hunters mentioned sounded like slavers or worse, the kind of predators that haunted the galaxy's dark corners. His isolated mining station had become an accidental sanctuary for beings who had nowhere else to run. "How many survivors?" he asked quietly. "Few," replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Perhaps scattered groups like us, but our people are nearly extinct. The hunters adapt quickly to our defenses, and their technology advances with each world they conquer." Felt a familiar rage building in his chest, the same fury that had consumed him after losing his family. But this time, the anger came with purpose rather than despair. These aliens, this mother and her children, had lost everything just as he had. The difference was that they still had each other, still had hope for the future. "You're safe here," he told her, meaning every word. "I won't let anything happen to you or your children." His eyes widened at his declaration. Something in his tone must have transcended translation barriers because she reached out and touched his hand. Her skin was warm and slightly electric, creating a tingling sensation that wasn't unpleasant. "You speak truth," she said wonderingly. "Your mind has shadows, but your heart burns bright. My children chose well to trust you." The triplets began stirring as the station's lights brightened for the day cycle. They rushed to their mother with joyful sounds that needed no translation, embraced them carefully, speaking in their musical language while glancing frequently at. Whatever she was telling them, it made them look at him with even greater trust and curiosity. Excused himself to prepare breakfast, giving the family privacy for their reunion. As he worked in the station's small galley, he found himself humming for the first time in years. The sound of alien voices drifted from the medical bay, musical and warm and alive. For the first time since the disaster, his home didn't feel empty. When he returned with food, he discovered that Lyra had somehow interfaced with the station's computer systems. Holographic displays showed star charts and navigation data that definitely hadn't been there before. The child's integration with human technology was seamless and instinctive, as if she spoke the language of electronic systems. "She learns quickly," explained, nodding his amazement. "Our kind has always been natural symbionts with technology. It is one reason the hunters prize us." The casual mention of their persecution sent another spike of anger through. He pushed it down, focusing instead on the immediate needs of his unexpected guests. The station's supplies were adequate for extended occupation, but modifications would be needed for long-term habitability. As they shared the improvised meal, found himself drawn into the family's dynamics. The children's personalities emerged more clearly through continued interaction. Lyra's technological aptitude was matched by fierce protectiveness toward her siblings. Zephyr's empathic abilities let him sense and respond to unspoken needs, often comforting Nova when memories of their recent trauma surfaced. Nova's pattern recognition made her an excellent problem solver, finding solutions that others missed. Watched interact with her children with growing amazement. Their easy acceptance of him clearly surprised her, as did their obvious affection. When Zephyr spontaneously hugged his leg while he worked on the food processors, she stared as if witnessing something impossible. "In our culture," she explained later, "bonding with adults outside the family unit is extremely rare. Children typically require months or years to accept new guardians, yet my young ones treat you as trusted family after mere hours." Considered this information while helping Nova solve a puzzle made from spare electronic components. The child's delighted laughter when she found the solution sent warmth spreading through his chest. He realized that their acceptance meant as much to him as his protection meant to them. The day progressed with growing comfort on all sides, showed the family around the station, explaining its various systems and functions. The children were endlessly curious about human technology and customs, asking questions that ranged from practical to philosophical. Their mother observed these interactions with growing confidence in her decision to trust him. By evening, had made his choice about the contract renewal. He activated the communication array and sent his decision to corporate headquarters, along with a request for extended supplies and modified life support equipment. The message was necessarily vague about his reasons, but his supervisor would understand that something significant had changed. As night fell again, the family settled into the rhythms of station life. The children helped with minor tasks, their unique abilities proving surprisingly useful for maintenance work. Contributed her knowledge of advanced materials science, suggesting improvements to systems that had never considered possible. When the lights dimmed for sleep cycle, found himself reluctant to end the day. The station felt alive in a way it never had during his solitary months. Voices and laughter echoed through corridors that had known only silence. For the first time since losing his own family, he dared to imagine building something new from the ashes of loss. Approached him as he finished his evening rounds, her children already asleep in their makeshift nest. She moved with fluid grace despite her injuries, her presence somehow both alien and familiar. "You have given us hope," she said simply. "For months we fled from system to system, finding only fear or indifference. You offer sanctuary without asking for anything in return. This is a rare gift in the galaxy." Met her grateful gaze, seeing depths of intelligence and strength that humbled him. This being had lost her world, her people, everything except her children. Yet she retained faith in the possibility of goodness, hope for a future beyond mere survival. "You're not the only ones who needed sanctuary," he admitted. "I've been running from ghosts for 3 years. Maybe it's time to stop running and start building something better." The understanding that passed between them needed no translation. Two survivors, from different worlds and different tragedies, recognizing the possibility of healing in each other's company. As returned to her children, felt the first stirrings of something he'd thought lost forever, the desire to protect and nurture rather than simply endure. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The hunters mentioned might still be searching for her family. The station's resources would need careful management to support 4 additional occupants. Corporate oversight would eventually require explanations for his supply requests and contract modifications. But tonight, for the first time in 3 years, fell asleep to the sound of breathing that wasn't his own. The station hummed with life and purpose, sheltering beings who had chosen to trust him with their survival. Whatever came next, he would face it not as a man running from his past, but as someone committed to building a future worth protecting. 3 weeks passed in a blur of adaptation and discovery. Found himself amazed at how quickly the station had transformed from a sterile workplace into something resembling a home. The triplets had claimed various spaces as their own, creating small nests with salvaged materials from their mother's ship. Lyra had practically merged with the computer systems, her technological symbiosis improving efficiency across all station operations. Zephyr had appointed himself the family's emotional caretaker, somehow sensing when anyone felt stressed or sad. Nova had turned the cargo bay into an elaborate maze of puzzle boxes and pattern games. Its recovery progressed better than expected. Her species apparently healed faster than humans, though she required different nutrients and mineral supplements. Had jury-rigged a hydroponics bay to grow crystalline formations that her people consumed for trace elements. The sight of her morning meditation, surrounded by growing crystal gardens, never failed to strike him as beautiful and otherworldly. The real challenge came in the form of a priority transmission from corporate headquarters. Stared at the message display, his stomach sinking as he read the contents. An inspection team was en route to 442B, scheduled to arrive in 48 hours. The official reason was routine evaluation of extended contract personnel, but suspected someone had noticed his unusual supply requests. "You look troubled," observed, entering the communication center with her characteristic silent grace. Her injuries had healed to the point where she moved normally, though caught her favoring her left side when she thought no one was watching. "Company inspection," he explained, showing her the message. "They want to evaluate station operations and personnel welfare. I can't hide your family during a full inspection." Studied the information with her usual intense focus. Her skin shifted to deeper blue tones, a sign had learned indicated serious concern. The triplets had mentioned that their mother's color changes reflected both emotion and active threat assessment, a evolutionary adaptation from their predator-rich environment. "We could hide in the ship," she suggested, though her tone suggested she already saw the flaws in that plan. "The ship's hull is too damaged," replied. "Their sensors would detect life signs immediately. Besides, hiding would only work short-term. Eventually, someone would ask questions about my resource consumption and behavioral changes." They stood in uncomfortable silence, both understanding the magnitude of the problem. Discovery would mean separation at minimum. Corporate policy regarding alien contact was classified, but doubted it included family adoption by lonely minors. More likely, and her children would be transferred to research facilities or military installations for study. The thought of losing his newfound family sent waves of panic through his chest. Over 3 weeks, these beings had become more precious to him than his own life. The children called him guardian in their language, a title that explained carried deep cultural significance. He couldn't bear the thought of failing them after they'd invested such trust in his protection. "There might be another option," said slowly, an idea forming as he spoke. "Corporate hasn't had direct contact with non-human intelligences before. Their policies are theoretical rather than practical. If we control the first contact situation, we might be able to establish favorable precedents." His eyes brightened with interest. "You would risk your career to protect us." "I'd risk more than that," replied honestly. "Your family now, families protect each other." The simple statement made skin shimmer through several color phases before settling on warm gold tones. Had learned that gold meant joy mixed with deep gratitude. Her expression suggested she was experiencing emotions that her species had no easy translation for. "Very well," she said finally. "What do you propose?" Spent the next hour outlining his plan. Rather than hiding the alien family, he would present their situation as a humanitarian rescue that had evolved into beneficial cooperation. His technological knowledge and her children's unique abilities could be framed as valuable assets rather than security risks. The key was demonstrating that the arrangement benefited both corporate interests and human-alien relations. The plan required careful staging, worked with the family to document their contributions to station operations. Lyra's system improvements had increased efficiency by 30%. Zephyr's empathic abilities made him incredibly effective at diagnosing equipment malfunctions by sensing the emotional states of stressed machinery operators. Nova's pattern recognition had identified potential asteroid mining sites that human surveys had missed. His knowledge of advanced materials science was perhaps the most valuable asset. She had helped design crystal growth matrices that could revolutionize mineral processing. Her people's biotechnology integration offered solutions to problems that human engineering couldn't address. If presented properly, their presence represented a massive opportunity rather than a security threat. The night before the inspection, found himself unable to sleep. He walked through the station's corridors, noting how much had changed since the family's arrival. The children's laughter echoed from various sections where they'd built play areas. His crystal gardens added beauty and function to previously sterile spaces. The whole facility felt alive in ways that standard human habitation never achieved. He discovered in the observation deck, gazing out at the star field beyond the station's hull. She wore a simple robe that seemed to shift colors with the reflected starlight, and her posture suggested deep contemplation. Approached quietly, not wanting to disturb her meditation. "I have been thinking about tomorrow," she said without turning around. "About trust and risk and the nature of first impressions between species." Joined her at the viewport, watching distant suns paint patterns across the cosmic void. "Are you having second thoughts about the plan?" "No," she replied firmly. "But I wonder if you understand the magnitude of what you are attempting. You risk your career, your reputation, your standing among your own people, for beings you have known for mere weeks." "It doesn't feel like weeks," said honestly. "It feels like you've always been here, like the station was incomplete before your arrival." Turned to study his face with her penetrating gaze. "Your species fascinates me," she said softly. "Humans have capacity for such rapid bonding, such fierce loyalty to adopted family. My people require years to develop such connections, yet you risk everything for children who are not of your blood." "Blood doesn't make family," replied. "Choice does, commitment does, love does." The word hung in the air between them, carrying more weight than had intended. He found himself caught in Sorora bright eyes, seeing depths of intelligence and warmth that made his chest tight with unfamiliar emotions. The moment stretched until soft footsteps interrupted their conversation. Guardian, Lyra's voice carried a note of uncertainty that was unusual for the confident child. We cannot sleep. Tomorrow feels dangerous. Knelt to the child's level, noting that Zephyr and Nova hovered in the doorway behind their sister. All three children showed the blue-green skin tones that indicated anxiety among their people. Their large eyes held trust mixed with fear, a combination that made heart ache with protective instincts. Tomorrow will be challenging, he admitted, gathering all three children into an embrace that had become natural over their time together. But we'll face it together, as a family. Promise, Nova whispered, her small hand gripping his shirt with desperate strength. I promise, said, meaning every word. No matter what happens tomorrow, I won't let anyone separate us. Watched the exchange with an expression that cycled through several emotions before settling on something like wonder. When the children finally returned to their sleeping area, she remained on the observation deck with. The silence between them felt comfortable rather than awkward, filled with shared understanding and purpose. They love you, she observed quietly. As deeply as they love me, this is unprecedented in our culture. I love them too, replied without hesitation. And I love, he paused, suddenly uncertain how to finish the sentence. Skin shifted to warm gold tones. Yes, she said simply. I know, the feeling is mutual, though such rapid bonding frightens me. We have learned to be cautious with our trust. The admission sent warmth flooding through his chest. He reached for her hand, finding her skin warm and slightly electric against his palm. The contact felt natural despite their biological differences, as if they were designed to complement each other. After tomorrow, he said softly, we can explore what this means, but tonight we should rest. Whatever comes, we'll face it as a united family. The morning brought a flurry of preparation activity. Reviewed his presentation materials while the family made final adjustments to their evidence of productive cooperation. Lyra demonstrated her technological interfaces one more time, her fingers glowing as she optimized system functions with casual expertise. Zephyr practiced his empathic diagnostic techniques on the atmospheric processors, accurately identifying stress points in the machinery. Nova arranged her pattern recognition displays, showing asteroid composition predictions that exceeded human survey accuracy by significant margins. Prepared examples of her materials science innovations, creating crystal structures that demonstrated principles human technology couldn't duplicate. Her calm confidence helped steady everyone's nerves, though noticed her skin maintaining the deep blue tones that indicated controlled anxiety. The inspection ship arrived precisely on schedule, a sleek corporate vessel designed for efficiency rather than comfort. Watched through the external cameras as the docking sequence engaged, his heart hammering against his ribs. Everything depended on the next few hours going exactly according to plan. Inspector Sarah Martinez emerged from the airlock with two technicians and a security officer. Had worked with her briefly during his initial assignment to 442B and remembered her as thorough but fair. Her expression remained professionally neutral as she conducted her preliminary scans, but he caught her frown at the unusual life sign readings. She said formally, Your status reports have been unusual lately. Increased resource consumption, modified life support parameters, and some interesting efficiency improvements. Care to explain? I can do better than explain, replied, keeping his voice steady despite his racing pulse. I can show you. He led the inspection team through the station, pointing out the various improvements and modifications. Martinez and her team took notes and sensor readings, their expressions shifting from suspicion to confusion to growing interest. When they reached the main computer core, Lyra stepped forward with shy confidence. I help make systems better, she said in carefully practiced English. Watch. The child placed her glowing fingers on the interface panel, and the entire computer network responded with smooth efficiency. System status displays showed optimization levels that impressed even the veteran technicians. Lyra's demonstration was flawless, her natural abilities making human-designed interfaces work better than their creators had intended. What exactly is she? Martinez asked, her professional composure slipping slightly. "She's my daughter," replied firmly. "They all are." The next hour tested every aspect of his plan. He presented the family's situation with careful emphasis on humanitarian rescue and mutual benefit, demonstrated her materials science knowledge, creating crystal formations that made the corporate technicians take rapid notes. Zephyr's empathic diagnostics identified equipment problems that the inspection team hadn't detected. Nova's pattern recognition abilities predicted several potential mining opportunities that could generate significant profits. Martinez listened with increasing amazement, her initial skepticism giving way to recognition of the extraordinary opportunity was presenting. The security officer remained alert, but showed no signs of considering the family a threat. The technicians were clearly fascinated by the technological innovations they were witnessing. "This is unprecedented," Martinez said finally. "First contact protocols exist, but nothing covers family adoption by station personnel." "Sometimes you have to write new protocols," replied. "These people needed sanctuary, I provided it. Now we all benefit from the arrangement." "The children clearly see you as a parental figure," Martinez observed, noting how the triplets stayed close to throughout the presentation. "And the mother trusts you completely. How did this level of bonding develop so quickly?" "Good people recognize other good people," interjected, her translated words carrying musical overtones that fascinated the inspection team. "Risked his life to save strangers. My children understand such courage and honor. They chose him as guardian because his heart is pure." The simple declaration carried such conviction that even the skeptical security officer nodded in agreement, felt his chest swell with pride and emotional warmth. His public acknowledgement of their family bond felt like a declaration of commitment that transcended cultural and species barriers. Martinez spent another hour reviewing documentation and conducting interviews. She spoke privately with each family member, confirming that their arrangement was voluntary and beneficial to all parties. The children's obvious affection for was impossible to fake, and their excitement about their new life was genuinely infectious. "I'll need to consult with senior management," Martinez said finally. "But preliminary assessment suggests this situation could be classified as beneficial alien contact rather than security breach. Your resource efficiency improvements alone justify continued support." "What about the family's legal status?" asked, the question that had been weighing on his mind for weeks. "That's above my authorization level," Martinez admitted. "But I'll recommend temporary protective custody pending formal diplomatic contact protocols. Your station could serve as an unofficial embassy until permanent arrangements are established." The suggestion sent relief flooding through. Temporary status was infinitely better than separation or detention. It would give them time to build stronger legal foundations for their unusual family arrangement. As the inspection team prepared to leave, Nova approached Martinez with a small crystal formation she had created during the demonstration. The geometric pattern seemed to shift and glow with internal light, beautiful despite its alien nature. "For you," Nova said shyly, "so you remember that different can be good." Martinez accepted the gift with obvious emotion, her professional composure finally cracking completely. "Thank you," she said softly. "I'll make sure the right people understand what you've accomplished here." After the inspection ship departed, the family gathered in the common area to process the day's events. The stress of maintaining perfect presentations had exhausted everyone, but the preliminary results were encouraging. Felt cautiously optimistic that they had successfully navigated the first major threat to their unity. "We did well," said, settling beside with unconscious familiarity. "Your plan worked because it was built on truth rather than deception. My people value such honesty above all other virtues." "It's not over yet," cautioned, though he allowed himself to relax slightly. "But we've bought time to build something stronger." The children curled up around both adults, their natural affection breaking down the last barriers of species difference. Lyra traced patterns on his arm with her glowing fingers, a sign of deep contentment among her people. Zephyr hummed soft melodies that seemed designed to promote emotional harmony. Nova arranged small objects into complex geometric patterns, creating beauty from random materials. As the station's lights dimmed for the sleep cycle, reflected on how much his life had changed in just 3 weeks. The lonely engineer who had fled human contact was gone, replaced by someone committed to protecting and nurturing his adopted family. The transformation felt both natural and miraculous, as if he had finally become the person he was meant to be. "Guardian," Lyra murmured sleepily, "tomorrow will be better, yes." "Tomorrow will be better," he confirmed, stroking her hair with gentle fingers. "And the day after that will be better still." His hand found his in the darkness, her warm touch sending comfortable electricity through his nervous system. The gesture felt like a promise of deeper connection once they navigated the immediate challenges to their family's survival. Her skin glowed softly with the gold tones that indicated joy and gratitude, visible even in the dim lighting. "Sleep well, my family," whispered, the possessive pronoun feeling perfectly natural despite their biological differences. For the first time since the colony disaster, fell asleep surrounded by beings who loved him unconditionally. His last conscious thought was a prayer of gratitude to whatever cosmic forces had brought this extraordinary family into his life. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but they would face them together, united by bonds stronger than species or blood or convention. The station hummed around them, its mechanical sounds mixing with the soft breathing of sleeping aliens who had become more precious than his own existence. Outside the hull, the stars continued their eternal dance, witness to the formation of an impossible family that every expectation about the nature of love and loyalty in the vastness of space. 6 months had passed since Inspector Martinez's visit, and the station had evolved into something barely recognized. Corporate headquarters had officially designated 442B as a special cultural exchange facility, providing additional resources and personnel to support the unprecedented human-alien cooperation program. The bureaucratic designation felt cold compared to the warm reality of family life that filled the corridors. Stood in the expanded hydroponics bay, watching tend to her crystal gardens with practiced grace. Her knowledge of biointegrated technology had revolutionized their food production systems. The crystal formations she grew weren't just decorative. They served as living computers that optimized nutrient distribution and atmospheric composition. The result was a self-sustaining ecosystem that produced both human and alien nutritional requirements with minimal external input. "The morning harvest looks particularly good," observed, noting the increased luminescence in the newer crystal growths. "The children's presence accelerates the maturation process," explained, her skin showing the warm gold tones that had become favorite sight. "Their natural bioelectric fields resonate with the crystal matrices, creating harmonic growth patterns." As if summoned by their conversation, the triplets burst into the hydroponics bay with their usual exuberant energy. At 9 months of human time, they had grown noticeably taller and more confident. Their language skills had advanced dramatically, though they still preferred to communicate with through a mixture of English, their native tongue, and the gestural language they developed together. "Guardian," Lyra called excitedly, her fingers already glowing with anticipation. "The new supply ship has different computer protocols. May I interface with their systems?" Smiled at the child's enthusiasm for technology. Over the months, Lyra's abilities had grown more sophisticated. She could now communicate directly with AI systems, creating hybrid interfaces that combined human logic with alien intuition. Her innovations had attracted attention from every major technology corporation in human space. "Remember the safety protocols," cautioned gently. "Never interface with unfamiliar systems without proper shielding." "I remember," Lyra replied with the patience of someone who had heard the same warning dozens of times. "Safety first, exploration second, optimization third." Zephyr approached with his characteristic empathic sensitivity, immediately sensing the underlying tension that had been building for weeks. The boy's emotional awareness had become almost supernatural, allowing him to detect stress and conflict before they reached conscious levels. "You worry about something new," Zephyr observed, his large eyes reflecting concern. "Not the old sadness, different worry." Knelt to the child's level, still amazed by the boy's perceptive abilities. "Nothing you need to worry about," he said gently. "Adult concerns about the future." "Our future?" Nova asked, joining the conversation with her usual direct approach. The girl's pattern recognition abilities had identified inconsistencies in its behavior that suggested significant changes approaching their family situation. Before could answer, the communication system activated with an incoming priority transmission. The display showed director Harrison Wells from corporate headquarters, a man had never spoken with directly but whose reputation preceded him. The director's presence on a routine supply ship indicated something far more significant than standard resupply operations. Director Wells said without preamble once the connection established, "I'm aboard the supply vessel currently docking with your station. I need to speak with you and the alien family immediately. We have developments that require urgent discussion." Felt his stomach drop at the formal tone and military escort visible behind the director. After months of positive reports and successful cooperation, something had clearly changed in the corporate attitude toward their arrangement. He exchanged worried glances with, whose skin had shifted to the deep blue tones that indicated serious alarm. "Children, please return to your quarters and work on your studies," instructed, her voice maintaining calm authority despite her obvious concern. "And I will handle whatever this involves." The triplets looked between their parents with the intuitive understanding that children develop when their security feels threatened. Lyra's technological abilities had undoubtedly detected anomalies in the approaching ship's data transmissions. Zephyr's empathic senses probably picked up the emotional tension of the vessel's occupants. Nova's pattern recognition would have identified deviations from standard supply mission protocols. "We stay together," Lyra declared with unexpected firmness. "Family faces danger together." Felt pride and terror in equal measure at the child's brave declaration. Their unity as a family had grown stronger with each passing month, but it also made them vulnerable as a group if corporate policy had shifted against their arrangement. Director Wells arrived 20 minutes later with a full security detail and several officials didn't recognize. The formal nature of their entrance made the station's common area feel like a courtroom. Wells was a tall, stern man whose expression revealed nothing about his intentions. The security personnel remained alert but not overtly threatening. "Mr. Wells began formally, "I want to state for the record that your performance ratings over the past 6 months have been exceptional. The efficiency improvements and technological innovations documented at this facility exceed anything we've seen in corporate history." "Thank you, sir," replied cautiously, wondering where the conversation was heading. "However," Wells continued, "recent intelligence reports have created complications regarding the status of your alien guests. We've received confirmation that hostile forces are actively searching for survivors of their species. Your station may no longer be the safe sanctuary it once appeared." Stepped forward with dignified composure despite the obvious threat implications. "Director Wells," she said, her translated words carrying musical undertones that somehow conveyed both respect and warning. "My people have faced extinction before. We do not surrender easily, nor do we abandon those who have shown us kindness." "I understand your position," Wells replied, his expression softening slightly. "But our intelligence indicates that the hunters you mentioned have expanded their search into human space. They've approached several border systems with offers of advanced technology in exchange for information about alien refugees." The implications hit like a physical blow. The hunters weren't just pursuing family out of general hostility. They were actively negotiating with humans to locate survivors. The corporate protection that had seemed so solid suddenly felt fragile against organized pursuit by technologically superior adversaries. "What are you recommending?" asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Relocation," Wells said simply. "We have a heavily defended research facility in the core systems that could provide better protection. The family would be safe there while we work out long-term diplomatic solutions." "And asked," her voice carrying dangerous undertones that the translation system couldn't quite capture. "Mr. would be reassigned to a standard posting," Wells explained. "His exemplary service here qualifies him for premium assignments anywhere in corporate space." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Felt the children move closer to him, their natural instincts recognizing the threat to their family unity even if they didn't understand the political complexities. Separation would destroy everything they'd built together, reducing their family to a bureaucratic arrangement between corporate and alien parties. "No," said quietly, the word carrying more conviction than he'd felt about anything in his entire life. "I beg your pardon?" Director Wells asked, clearly not expecting direct refusal. "No," repeated louder this time. "We're not separating. This family stays together or I resign my position and we find sanctuary elsewhere. The security team tensed at his declaration, but Wells raised a hand to maintain calm. The director studied with new interest, as if seeing him clearly for the first time. The silence stretched until Lyra broke it with her characteristic directness. "Guardian is our father," she announced, her young voice carrying absolute certainty. "Mother is our mother, we are family, no separation." "Families protect each other," Zephyr added, his empathic abilities obviously detecting the emotional currents flowing through the room. "No fear, no running." "Pattern suggests unity equals strength," Nova concluded with her logical approach to problem-solving. "Division equals weakness, simple mathematics." Director Wells looked at the united family with something approaching amazement. "The children consider you their father?" he asked. "They are my children," replied without hesitation, "all of them including." The possessive declaration surprised everyone in the room, including himself, but saying it aloud felt right in a way that transcended logical analysis. This extraordinary family had become his entire world, worth any sacrifice to protect. Skin shifted through several color phases before settling on the warm gold that indicated deep joy. "Yes," she said simply, "is my bonded mate and the father of my children. Our family bonds transcend species differences." The translation of bonded mate seemed inadequate for whatever concept she was expressing, but the emotional content was unmistakable. Felt his heart race as the implications of her declaration registered. They had grown closer over the months, but he hadn't dared assume that their relationship carried the same significance for her that it did for him. "Well," Director Wells said after a long pause, "that does complicate the standard relocation protocols." "Sir," one of his assistants whispered urgently, "bonding isn't recognized under current corporate policy." "Current policy was written before we had actual aliens to consider," Wells replied dryly. "I suspect we'll need significant updates to our procedures." Seized the opening that the director's pragmatic approach provided. "With respect, sir, the threat assessment may be exaggerated. Our defensive capabilities have grown significantly over the past months. Lyra's technological integration has improved our sensor networks beyond standard specifications. The station could detect approaching threats long before they posed actual danger." "Show him," suggested, her confidence in their family's abilities overriding diplomatic caution. Lyra stepped forward with shy pride, her fingers already beginning to glow with bioelectric energy. "May I demonstrate our security improvements?" Director Wells nodded, clearly curious about the child's capabilities. Lyra approached the main computer console and placed her hands on the interface panel. Immediately, holographic displays filled the room with sensor data that exceeded anything Wells had ever seen from a remote mining station. "We monitor 3 light years in all directions," Lyra explained as data flowed across the displays. "Passive sensors track every ship movement, communication signal, and energy signature. Active scanning can penetrate most stealth technologies. No one approaches without our knowledge." "The resolution on these sensors is impossible," Wells's technical assistant protested. "Standard equipment can't achieve this level of precision." "Not standard equipment," corrected gently. "Biointegrated systems using hybrid technology principles. My daughter's natural abilities allow her to optimize electronic systems beyond their design parameters." Zephyr stepped forward to add his contribution to the demonstration. "I can sense emotional states of ship crews from significant distances," he explained. "Hostile intent creates distinctive patterns that register clearly through hyperspace echoes." "That's scientifically impossible," the assistant muttered. "Many things are impossible until you see them work," Nova commented with the wisdom of someone much older than her apparent years. "Pattern recognition shows that human understanding has gaps that our abilities can fill." Director Wells watched the demonstration with growing fascination rather than skepticism. As a corporate leader, he understood the value of unique capabilities that provided competitive advantages. The family's combined abilities represented technologies that no amount of money could purchase on the open market. "Assuming your defensive capabilities are as advanced as you claim," Wells said slowly, "there remains the question of the hunter's persistence. Intelligence reports suggest they won't give up easily." "Then we prepare for confrontation rather than running," replied. "This station has become a symbol of successful human-alien cooperation, Abandoning it sends the wrong message to both species. You're talking about a potential military engagement, Wells warned. Corporate policy doesn't typically involve combat operations. Corporate policy also doesn't typically involve family protection, interjected. But some principles transcend policy limitations. The director considered the family's united front with obvious internal conflict. Could see the man weighing corporate risk management against the unprecedented opportunities their cooperation represented. The technology demonstrations had clearly impressed him, but the potential for hostile contact obviously concerned his superiors. I need to consult with headquarters, Wells said finally. But I want to understand something first. You're all willing to risk everything to stay together, even knowing that separation might mean safety. Safety without family is not life, replied immediately. It is merely existence. My children need their father's presence as much as they need mine. Guardian teaches us about human courage, Lyra added. How to stand up for what matters instead of running from problems. Family means never abandoning each other, Zephyr contributed with his characteristic emotional insight. Simple pattern, Nova concluded. Together strong, apart weak, choice is obvious. Felt overwhelming pride in his children's responses and their instinctive understanding of family loyalty. Director Wells seemed equally moved by their unified commitment to each other despite the obvious dangers. Very well, Wells said after another long pause. I'll recommend that headquarters approve a trial period for enhanced station defenses. If your family can demonstrate effective protection against potential threats, we'll consider permanent status for your arrangement. What kind of trial period? Asked, suspicious of corporate testing scenarios. 6 months, Wells replied. We'll provide additional defensive equipment and personnel, but you'll need to prove that this location can serve as both family home and diplomatic outpost. And if we succeed, asked. Then we rewrite the rules, Wells admitted. Your family situation is unprecedented, but so are the opportunities it represents. Success here could establish the foundation for broader human-alien cooperation. The offer represented both opportunity and tremendous pressure. Success would secure their family's future and potentially benefit both species. Failure could mean forced separation or worse consequences if the hunters actually materialized as threats. Looked at his family, seeing determination rather than fear in their faces. Skin glowed with confident gold tones. The children showed the excited energy they always displayed when facing interesting challenges rather than dreaded obligations. We accept, said formally. 6 months to prove that love and unity can overcome any external threat. Director Wells smiled for the first time since his arrival. I was hoping you'd say that. The galaxy needs more examples of cooperation and fewer examples of conflict. As the corporate team prepared to leave, Wells pulled aside for a private conversation. Off the record, he said quietly, I think what you've accomplished here is extraordinary. That family sees you as their protector, provider, and father. Don't underestimate how rare that kind of trust is, especially across species lines. They've given me more than I've given them, replied honestly. They've given me purpose and meaning and love I thought I'd lost forever. Then fight for it, Wells advised, because what you have here is worth fighting for. After the corporate delegation departed, the family gathered in their common area to process the day's events. The children curled around and with their usual affectionate closeness, seeking comfort and reassurance from their parents' presence. 6 months, said thoughtfully. We need to use the time to build defenses and strengthen our position. We also need to prepare the children for potential conflict, added, her skin showing the controlled blue that indicated serious planning mode. We're not afraid, Lyra declared with fierce determination. We have the best guardian in the galaxy. And the best mother, Zephyr added, his empathic abilities detecting the love that flowed between all family members. Pattern suggests victory probability is high when family units remain intact, Nova concluded with mathematical confidence. Embraced his children, feeling the familiar warmth of protective love that had redefined his entire existence. Whatever challenges the next 6 months brought, they would face them as a united family. The lonely mining engineer who had first rescued a dying ship was gone forever, replaced by a father determined to protect his impossible family against any threat the galaxy might produce. 6 months to change the rules of the universe, he murmured, kissing the tops of 3 small heads that belonged to the most precious beings in his life. We will succeed, said with absolute conviction, her hand finding his in the familiar gesture that had become their anchor through every crisis. Outside the station's hull, stars continued their eternal dance, unaware that a small family in an isolated outpost was about to redefine the possibilities of love and loyalty across the infinite reaches of space. The Hunter fleet emerged from hyperspace 3 months into the trial period, their ships appearing like dark wounds against the star field. Stood in the command center, watching the tactical displays that Lyra's enhanced systems provided with crystal clarity. 12 vessels arranged in a predatory formation, their technology clearly superior to anything in human or known alien arsenals. They found us, he said quietly, though he'd been expecting this moment for weeks. The enhanced sensor network had detected probe signals growing stronger with each passing day, searching patterns that gradually narrowed toward 442B's location. Moved to his side with fluid grace, her skin cycling through deep blue warning tones before settling on the silver-white that indicated combat readiness. Over the past months, had learned that her people's color changes weren't just emotional responses, but actual physiological preparations for different types of stress and conflict. The Hunter ships are devourers, she said, her voice carrying undertones of ancient fear. They consume the essence of other species to fuel their technology. My people were not their first victims, nor will we be their last. The children gathered around their parents with remarkable calm for beings barely past their first birthday in human time. Lyra's fingers already glowed with bioelectric energy as she prepared to interface with the station's defensive systems. Zephyr's empathic abilities were focused outward, reading the emotional signatures of the approaching enemy. Nova arranged small objects into complex patterns, her way of processing threat data and calculating response probabilities. Guardian, Lyra said with quiet confidence, our defenses are ready. The Hunter ships are powerful, but they expect easy prey. We are not easy prey. Felt pride surge through his chest at his daughter's courage. The corporate reinforcements had arrived 2 weeks earlier, adding military-grade weapons and shields to the station's mining equipment. But the real strength of their defenses lay in the hybrid technology that the family had developed together. Communication incoming, Zephyr announced, his empathic senses detecting the hostile intent behind the transmission before it actually arrived. The main display activated to show a being that violated every human concept of natural evolution. The Devourer commander appeared to be assembled from parts of different species, organic and mechanical components grafted together in disturbing combinations. Its multiple eyes focused independently, while its voice emerged from what might have been 3 different vocal systems. Human station, the creature spoke in mechanically translated words that carried harmonics of suffering. You harbor prey that belongs to the hunt. Surrender the bioenhancers and their spawned extensions, and your species will be spared participation in the great feeding. Go to hell, replied without hesitation, his protective instincts overriding any diplomatic considerations. The Devourer's expression shifted through several configurations that might have been amusement. Your species shows primitive courage. This will make the eventual consumption more satisfying. You have 1 rotation of your planet to comply, or we will take what we require by force. The transmission ended, leaving the family alone with the weight of an ultimatum that everyone understood was meaningless. The Hunters had no intention of honoring any agreement. They had come to harvest and her children for whatever essence-consuming process powered their civilization. They speak of us as resources to be consumed, said, her voice carrying controlled fury. This is what drove my people to extinction, not war or conquest, but harvesting. They farm intelligent species for biological enhancement. Pattern analysis suggests they've done this many times before, Nova added, her young voice carrying disturbing wisdom. Their technology shows integration from multiple species. We would become part of their collective capabilities. The thought of his children being consumed to power alien technology sent waves of rage through that surprised him with their intensity. He'd thought he understood protective love before, but facing an actual threat to his family revealed depths of fury he'd never imagined possessing. They won't touch any of you, he declared with absolute conviction. Whatever it costs, however long it takes, they won't touch my family. Lyra approached the main computer interface, her entire body beginning to glow with bioluminescent patterns that had never seen before. "Father," she said formally, using the English word that carried special significance in their family, "I request permission to fully integrate with the station's systems." "What does that mean exactly?" asked, those alarmed expressions suggested the implications were serious. "Complete technological symbiosis," explained. She would become one with all electronic systems on the station. Her consciousness would expand to encompass every sensor, every weapon, every defensive capability, but the integration might be irreversible. Felt his heart stop at the explanation. His daughter was offering to sacrifice her individual existence to protect the family. The courage behind the gesture overwhelmed him, but the potential cost made it impossible to accept. "Absolutely not," he said firmly. "We find another way. No one in this family sacrifices themselves for the others." "But father," Lyra protested, her glowing patterns intensifying with emotion, "I am the only one who can achieve complete system integration. Without it, our defensive capabilities are limited to standard human technology levels." "Then we work with what we have," replied. "Family means no one gets left behind. That includes voluntary technological assimilation." Zephyr stepped forward with his characteristic empathic wisdom. "Guardian is correct," he said softly. "Unity requires that we all survive together. Individual sacrifice breaks the family pattern." "Pattern analysis confirms," Nova added with mathematical certainty. "Family strength comes from combined abilities, not single-member enhancement. Alternative solutions must exist." Watch the exchange between her mate and children with expressions that cycled through multiple emotional states. "This is why they chose you as guardian," she said wonderingly. "Human parents protect through preservation rather than sacrifice. My people would have honored Lyra's offer as heroic duty." "Maybe that's why your people didn't survive," said gently. "Heroes are admirable, but families need everyone to stay alive." The philosophical discussion was interrupted by proximity alarms as the hunter fleet began moving toward the station. Their approach pattern showed sophisticated tactical thinking, with smaller vessels moving to block potential escape routes while the larger ships prepared for direct assault. "They're not waiting for their deadline," observed, watching the tactical displays that showed hunter ships positioning for attack formation. "Hunters never honor their own terms," explained. "The ultimatum was psychological warfare designed to increase fear and desperation. They feed on emotional distress as much as biological essence." "Then let's disappoint them," said grimly, activating the station's enhanced defensive systems. The battle began with long-range energy exchanges that tested both sides' capabilities. The hunter ships fired weapons that seemed to twist space itself, creating gravitational anomalies that stressed the station's shields in unexpected ways. Counter-Strike used conventional plasma cannons enhanced by Lyra's technological integration, creating hybrid weapons that combined human engineering with alien intuition. "Their shields adapt to our weapon signatures," Lyra reported, her consciousness partially merged with the targeting systems. "Each hit teaches them how to resist the next attack." "Then we don't give them time to adapt," replied, initiating rapid-fire sequences that overwhelmed the hunter's learning algorithms with sheer volume. Zephyr suddenly stiffened, his empathic abilities detecting something that made his skin shift to alarmed purple tones. "Father, they're not just attacking the station. They're trying to establish emotional resonance links with us. They want to feed on our fear while we fight." The revelation added a psychological dimension to the battle that hadn't anticipated. The hunters weren't just trying to capture his family. They were attempting to consume their emotional energy during the combat itself. The thought of his children's feelings being harvested like a crop sent fresh fury through his nervous system. "Block them," he ordered. "Whatever it takes, don't let them into your minds." "I can create interference patterns," Lyra offered, her technological abilities adapting to the psychic threat. "But it requires partial integration with the communication systems." "Do it," authorized, trusting his daughter's judgment about acceptable levels of technological symbiosis. Lyra's consciousness expanded into the station's communication networks, her bioelectric patterns creating static that blocked the hunter's emotional intrusion attempts. The effort clearly strained her, but she maintained the barrier while continuing to optimize the defensive systems. The Hunter assault intensified as their psychological warfare failed to produce the expected results. More ships moved into direct attack positions, their weapons creating overlapping fields of gravitational distortion that threatened to tear the station apart. Felt the deck plating vibrate under his feet as structural stresses approached critical levels. "Shields at 60% and falling," Lyra reported, her voice carrying electronic harmonics that indicated deep integration with the station's systems. "I can maintain current defensive efficiency for perhaps 20 more minutes." "Then we need to end this faster," decided, reviewing their remaining tactical options. Moved to the secondary control station, her hands flowing across interfaces that she'd modified with crystal technology over the past months. "I can overload our power core to create a directed energy pulse," she suggested. "It would disable their adaptive shielding for a brief window." "What's the risk?" asked, though he suspected he wouldn't like the answer. "Possible station destruction if the pulse feedback exceeds containment parameters," admitted. "Estimated survival probability is approximately 67%. "Not good enough," said immediately. "These children deserve better odds than that." Nova looked up from her pattern analysis with the expression she wore when solving particularly complex puzzles. "Alternative pattern exists," she announced. "Hunters expect defensive strategies. Offensive surprise might create tactical advantage." "What kind of offensive surprise?" asked, intrigued by his daughter's strategic thinking. "Station has mining charges for asteroid processing," Nova explained, her young mind making connections that adult thinking might have missed. "Charges could be deployed as proximity weapons using cargo manipulator arms." The suggestion was brilliantly simple. The station's mining equipment included powerful explosive charges designed to fragment asteroids for processing. The cargo manipulators that had originally saved ship could deploy those charges as improvised mines around the attacking vessels. "Lyra, can you calculate deployment patterns for maximum effectiveness?" asked. "Already computing," Lyra replied, her enhanced consciousness processing variables faster than any human computer. "Optimal placement requires 47 charges distributed across three-dimensional attack vectors. Success probability increases to 89%. "Do it," ordered, feeling hope surge through his chest for the first time since the battle began. The next few minutes tested every improvement the family had made to the station's capabilities. Lyra's technological integration allowed precise deployment of mining charges through the cargo manipulator arms. Zephyr's empathic abilities helped predict Hunter's ship movement patterns. Nova's strategic analysis optimized the timing sequences for maximum tactical effect. Crystal technology enhanced the explosive yield of each charge. Coordinated the overall strategy, feeling pride and terror in equal measure as he watched his children work together to defend their home. Their combined abilities created tactical capabilities that neither human nor alien technology could have achieved independently. The mining charges detonated in carefully timed sequences that caught the Hunter ships between overlapping blast zones. The explosions themselves weren't powerful enough to destroy the heavily armored vessels, but the coordinated assault overwhelmed their adaptive defensive systems. Hunter shields flickered and failed as they struggled to adjust to multiple simultaneous threats. "Now," shouted, triggering every weapon system the station possessed. The concentrated firepower struck Hunter ships whose shields were down and defensive systems overloaded. 3 vessels exploded immediately, their accumulated essence-based technology creating secondary explosions that damaged nearby ships. The remaining Hunters found themselves facing an opponent that fought with cunning rather than just force. "They're retreating," Zephyr reported, his empathic senses detecting the shift from aggressive confidence to alarmed withdrawal among the Hunter crews. "Pursuit course blocked by debris field," Lyra added, her consciousness tracking the enemy ships as they fled the system. "They cannot return without significant regrouping time." Felt his knees go weak with relief as the immediate threat disappeared. His family had survived their first real test against forces that had destroyed entire civilizations. The victory felt too good to be true, but the tactical displays confirmed that the Hunters were indeed retreating. "Is everyone all right?" he asked, gathering his children close while checking for signs of strain or injury. "We are whole," replied, her skin showing the warm gold tones that indicated joy mixed with exhaustion. Our family remains intact. Pattern analysis suggests hunters will not return soon, Nova added with satisfaction. Their tactical assumptions proved incorrect. They will need time to develop new strategies. I maintained all system integrity during the battle, Lyra reported proudly. No permanent integration required. I am still completely myself. And I blocked their emotional intrusion attempts successfully, Zephyr contributed. They harvested no fear or despair from our family. Embraced all 4 members of his extraordinary family, feeling gratitude so intense it made his chest ache. They had faced extinction and emerged stronger, their unity proving more powerful than the technology that had consumed countless other species. Director Wells is not going to believe this battle report, said with exhausted laughter. He will believe it, corrected gently, because it is truth, and truth has power that transcends expectation. As the station's automated systems began damage assessment and repair protocols, the family settled into their common area to process what they had accomplished. The children curled around their parents with their usual affectionate closeness, seeking comfort and reassurance after their first real taste of mortal danger. We did it, said wonderingly. We actually did it. Of course we did, Lyra replied with matter-of-fact confidence. We are family, families protect each other. Pattern was obvious, Nova added. Unity plus determination plus love equals victory over any enemy. Emotional resonance among family members creates strength beyond individual capabilities. Zephyr concluded with his characteristic insight into the bonds that held them together. Smiled at her children's responses, her skin glowing with the warm gold that had become's favorite sight in the universe. This is why the hunters failed, she said softly. They understand consumption and extraction, but they do not understand creation and unity. Will they come back? Asked, though he suspected the answer wouldn't be reassuring. Eventually, admitted. But not soon and not with the same assumptions. We have taught them that some prey fights back with unexpected effectiveness. Then we use the time to get stronger, decided. Build better defenses, develop new strategies, prepare for whatever comes next. And grow as a family, added, her hand finding his with the familiar gesture that anchored them through every crisis. Love is our greatest weapon against forces that seek to tear us apart. The children agreed with sleepy enthusiasm, their energy finally depleted after the day's intense challenges. As the station's lights dimmed for the sleep cycle, reflected on how much his life had changed since that first desperate rescue. The lonely engineer fleeing from loss had become a father defending his family against the darkest forces in the galaxy. 3 months left in the trial period, he murmured to as they settled the children for sleep. I think we've already proven our point, she replied with amused confidence. Director Wells cannot argue with results like these. Nodded, feeling cautious optimism about their future together. They had faced their greatest test and emerged victorious, their family bonds stronger than ever. Whatever challenges remained, they would face them as a united front, bound by love that transcended species and convention and the vast emptiness between stars. Outside the station's hull, the debris of hunter ships drifted in slowly expanding clouds, testament to the power of family unity against forces that sought to consume rather than create. The stars continued their eternal dance, witness to another small victory for love and loyalty in the infinite darkness of space. 2 years had passed since the hunter attack, and 442b had transformed from an isolated mining station into the unofficial embassy for human-alien relations. The original facility had expanded into a small city, with residential quarters, research facilities, and diplomatic meeting spaces that accommodated dozens of species who had heard about the successful integration of the family. Stood on the observation deck of the new central tower, watching ships from across the galaxy dock at the expanded port facilities. Representatives from the Trade Federation consulted with Zephyr about emotional communication protocols. A delegation of crystalline beings from the Andromeda Spiral worked with Lyra to develop hybrid technology interfaces. Nova had become the preferred mediator for complex interspecies disputes, her pattern recognition abilities helping to identify common ground between wildly different cultures. The morning briefing schedule shows 17 different first contact situations, said, joining him at the viewport with the grace that had captivated him from their first meeting. Her skin showed the warm gold tones that had become even more beautiful over their years together, enhanced now by subtle patterns that indicated their formal bonding according to her people's customs. "Remember when our biggest worry was corporate inspection teams?" asked with amused nostalgia. "I remember when our biggest worry was surviving until tomorrow," replied, her hand finding his with the familiar gesture that had become their anchor through every challenge. "Now we worry about galactic peace and diplomatic protocols. I think I prefer the current problems." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of running footsteps and excited voices. The triplets, now approaching their third birthday in human time, had grown into remarkable young beings whose abilities continued to evolve in unexpected ways. They rushed onto the observation deck with the boundless energy of children who had never learned to fear the universe. "Father, Mother," Lyra called, her technological interfaces glowing with excitement. "The vegan ambassador just agreed to the Mineral Rights Treaty. My processing improvements made their quantum computers compatible with human data formats." Felt the familiar surge of pride in his daughter's achievements. Lyra's technological symbiosis had evolved into something that transcended simple computer interface. She could communicate directly with any artificial intelligence, creating bridges between incompatible systems that made interspecies cooperation possible on unprecedented scales. "Well done," he said, embracing the child who had become the unofficial technological ambassador for dozens of species. "How did the vegans react to your integration methods?" "They were amazed," Lyra replied with innocent pleasure. "They said their machines had never experienced emotion before. Now their computers write poetry during processing breaks." Zephyr approached with his characteristic empathic sensitivity, immediately sensing the satisfaction and love flowing between his family members. "The crystal beings want to establish permanent cultural exchange programs," he reported. "I help them understand human emotional concepts like friendship and loyalty." They were very confused at first. "Most species don't understand human bonding patterns," observed. "Your empathic abilities help translate concepts that have no equivalent in their cultures." Nova bounded up to the group with her usual direct approach to problem solving. "Pattern analysis indicates we need larger meeting spaces for next month's Galactic Cooperation Summit," she announced. "Current facilities can only accommodate 47% of confirmed attendees." Smiled at his youngest daughter's practical concerns. Nova had become the station's unofficial logistics coordinator, her pattern recognition abilities making her incredibly effective at organizing complex multi-species events. Her solutions to seemingly impossible scheduling conflicts had earned respect from diplomats 3 times her age. "What do you recommend?" he asked, genuinely curious about her solution. "Expansion pod construction using hybrid crystal metal architecture," Nova replied immediately. "Bio-integrated building techniques combined with human structural engineering. Completion possible in 18 days with proper resource allocation." 18 days for construction that should take 6 months, mused. "I'll never get used to how you children make the impossible look routine." "We learned from the best guardian in the galaxy," Zephyr said with the sincerity that made his empathic observation so touching. "You taught."